Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. We're just going to wait a few seconds to allow people to log in. Hello everyone and thank you for attending this webinar, Big Data and Analytics in Pharma, presented by First Word and Zephyr Health. My name is Paul Stockdale, Director of Pharma Industry Insights at First Word, and I'll be moderating this event. The event is being recorded and you will be sent a link via email to download the recording shortly. Our speakers today are Purnima Anil, Senior Research Manager at First Word, and Lance Scott, President and CEO of Zephyr Health. A Q&A session will follow the presentations. You can submit your questions during or after the presentation through the control panel that appears on the right side of your screen. Use the red arrow to collapse or expand the control panel. Okay, that's the housekeeping matters dealt with now. So I'll hand over to Purnima, who will give the first of two presentations. Please go ahead, Purnima.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. In today's webinar, we will cover in brief how big data can improve efficiency across pharma's value chain, challenges pharma companies are facing, and how to succeed with big data. The primary source of the insights we will present today are the results of numerous telephone interviews First Word conducted with pharma professionals. The primary research was augmented with desk research and analysis from publicly available sources. Slides detailing the full list of sources used will be shown at the end of this event. So let's start by looking at some numbers. The healthcare data analytics market is expected to grow at a rate of 27% to reach $24 billion by 2021. This market includes descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. Looking at the digital deals in healthcare, there were around 44 deals just in big data and analytics this year. Deals in big data and analytics year-to-date 2017 have been valued at $1.3 billion compared to just $564 million during the same period last year. The most significant deal was the $900 million invested in Grail, a deal that included funding from companies like Amazon and pharma companies such as Merck, BMS, and J&J. Grail is a startup focused on enabling the early detection of cancer in asymptomatic individuals through blood screening. Big data offers speed and security, which are the two key success factors in knowledge-based industries, and data analytics is expected to help organizations make smarter decisions for better business outcomes. Now let's look at the key drivers for big data and analytics in pharma. First and foremost, the healthcare system around the world is moving from volume-based to value-based. Payers are placing more importance on outcomes and evidence-based decision-making. Given the volume of data that is accessible today, providers are better placed to make value-based decisions. Second is, patients are becoming the center of healthcare systems and they are becoming more digitally empowered. By piecing together bits of information, pharma companies can map the various stages of the patient journey and ideally influence it to improve patient outcomes. Big data analytics can help uncover unknown patient needs with the kind of depth, breadth, and rigor that was not possible before. Another important driver is the fact that physicians today have less time, so it is critical to customize the engagement process. Digital channels and customer relationship management tools combined with analytics are an effective and efficient way to segment customers, personalize these interactions, and thereby provide value. There are several operational challenges faced by pharma companies, and digitalization and data analytics can now enable companies to overcome these challenges. For example, studies have shown that analytics can reduce the downtime in pharma plants by 30 to 40%. Machine learning algorithms and cloud-based networks can enable seamless processes, creating global integrated supply chains. The bottom line is, pharma needs to quickly embrace data and analytics to succeed in this value-based healthcare system. Now I'll briefly talk about various applications of data analytics across the pharma value chain. Initially, companies were using data and analytics to improve sales force effectiveness. But now with more data available from clinical trials, health records, social media, wearables, etc., pharma companies have the opportunity to improve their performance across the value chain. Looking at the R&D function, according to a Deloitte survey of R&D executives, exploiting big data using data mining and analytics is expected to be one of the main game-changing moves for the R&D teams. By using predictive modeling and machine language, companies can identify drug candidates and also predict the precise cost of each clinical trial. In addition, using genomic databases and other patient segmentation techniques from using data from electronic health records and other sources, companies can improve efficiency of trials. Continuous data analysis will also help companies to make real-time modification of trials that can reduce late-stage failures. To give some examples from the industry, AstraZeneca has invested $2 million in genome database to identify rare genetic variants to improve multiple aspects of its R&D operations, from drug discovery to the selection of participants for the clinical trials. They have also partnered with a company called Practice Fusion, which is a web-based electronic health record company, to collect data on asthma patients. Pfizer is working with Massachusetts General Hospital and IBM on metabolic data book. Using data from electronic medical records, genetic profiles, and wearable health devices, they are working on models to predict high-risk diabetic patients who are likely to develop complications. Now moving on to the production and manufacturing part of value chain. With the power of automated systems, digital data collection, and in-memory computing platforms, manufacturers now have the ability to analyze massive amount of factory data. Tapping into these sources and analyzing this data allow companies to build end-to-end process controls, resulting in higher quality products, improved efficiency, and reduced time to market. With the FDA placing more importance on continued process verification, data collection and analysis is now even more critical. In addition, data gathering and analytics is vital for specialized products like vaccine. For example, Merck had an issue with its vaccine development. They faced conformance issue with manufacturing that led to higher discard rates. Merck performed data analysis using open source software framework called Hadoop. And according to sources, Merck performed 15 billion calculations and more than 5.5 million batch-to-batch comparisons were done to identify the issues with the production. The company was able to rectify the issue and also apply the lessons to other vaccines to improve the quality at lower cost. Now moving on to the market access segment of value chain. In response to the need to demonstrate value to payers and physicians, pharma companies are gathering real-world evidence. There has been a huge increase in the number of pay-for-performance and outcome-based contracts between pharma and payers recently. For example, Novo Nordisk recently signed an outcome-based contract with Humana for their diabetes drug Victoza. Companies including Novartis, Merck, Amgen, Sanofi, Eli Lilly all have signed similar contracts with various insurers in 2016. Many pharma companies are working on creating data-driven platforms to enable modeling and analysis of innovative contracts to shift towards value-based healthcare models. Now looking at the sales and marketing part of value chain, pharma Salesforce teams specifically capture data on customer interactions to create highly responsive and agile sales plans. Big data insights about the market can be used to optimize call planning, designing compensation plans, and mapping regional customer segmentation. Ultimately, by sharing the data from each department, customer-facing staff can create a frictionless customer experience. An example is Roche Diagnostics. They've built an analytics-based culture where all major decisions are supported by data analysis. As a result, its sales team achieved a 3-point market share increase in less than 2 years. We will talk more in detail about the use of data and analytics in market access, medical affairs, and patient journey in the coming slides. Let's look at how big data and analytics can help in market access. The pharma industry, as we mentioned earlier, is moving from volume-based to value-based. Payers are under tremendous pressure to reduce healthcare costs. And with the availability of data and analytics, payers are now better placed to make evidence-based decisions. According to a recent survey of 223 payers and providers, 90% of respondents indicated that they are planning to adopt some form of big data and analytics over the next 5 years, and they believe the investment will save them up to 25% of cost. A huge majority of the respondents also indicated that investing in predictive analytical tools is key for navigating future clinical and financial challenges. So what types of data are payers interested in? First, payers are interested in data on patient population. With real-world data and development in the field of genetics, payers can now see how a drug or a treatment they reimburse is delivering value to a particular patient group. They're interested in data on health outcomes. Payers want to understand how the pricing of the drug is reflective of the certainty of outcome. Experts First Word interviewed suggest that gathering diverse data on real-world outcomes must be the norm across the pharma industry. Payers are interested in data on drug effectiveness. They are seeking data on comparative effectiveness and head-to-head trials that demonstrate how a new product has enhanced effectiveness versus an existing treatment or a standard of care. Then it's data on affordability. Price is understandably a key issue among payers. Data about health outcome answers the question, is your product effective and does it deliver the health outcome that patients need? On the other hand, data about affordability encompasses information about cost effectiveness. Essentially, it answers the question, can the payer afford it? And can the healthcare system benefit economically in the long term? To help achieve sustainable affordability, pharma companies must have the capability to assess data about cost together with data on health outcomes and communicate this information to payers and show how they can save money. Now that we've seen the type of data payers are interested in, let's have a look at how pharma market access teams can benefit from big data and analytics. Data analytics can help pharma companies to create pricing models that will help them to negotiate suitable prices. There are currently several value-based agreements between pharma and payers. For example, Cigna entered into 2 separate value-based agreements, one with Amgen for evolocumab and Sanofi for eloralumab. The value-based agreements requires the collection and analysis of medical data and pharmacy claims data to demonstrate the value of drugs. Effective data analysis could also inform appropriate risk-sharing agreements, enabling a true pay-for-performance model. An example is a Pfizer's sunitinib for advanced kidney cancer, which is supplied at half the usual cost for the first 3 months, after which the patient's response is assessed before full payment is made. Another example is the collaboration between Merck with Optum, where the payment of prescription drugs is aligned more closely with patient health outcome. Advanced analytical capabilities will now allow companies to segment payers based on various parameters and can help in understanding the opportunities and challenges companies have with specific payers. Segmenting payers through archetyping can enable a more efficient approach to generate required evidence. Archetyping can be based on data on payer needs, health expenditure, HTA requirements, complexity of current commercial agreements, etc. Archetyping should have a framework that is adaptable to the change in market needs and data requirements. With such a rich body of evidence, drugs can enter the market with great consideration of the payer perspective. Research shows that payers do not possess the capabilities or resources to utilize data for extensive value assessment or risk evaluation. Therefore, pharma companies need to think about giving technical and analytical support to payers. Now let's look at the role of data analytics in medical affairs. For medical affairs teams, systems that integrate internal information with external source of data can address a number of challenges. For example, the creation and execution of key opinion leader engagement strategy, which is a key function of medical affairs. While medical affairs team may already have significant knowledge of the top KOLs, the addition of data analytics provides the ability to product the next generation of KOLs, segment the current KOLs, and also help to provide more targeted, compliant engagement. Big data and analytics also help to assess the success of medical programs by analyzing data from, for example, social media forums. Even though medical teams are talking about data and analytics, experts First Word interviewed suggest that the current process of data sharing in most companies still involve capturing data in spreadsheets and sharing them via tools like SharePoint. And while making data accessible, the lack of data integration can compromise the whole value of data analysis. To help resolve this problem, technologies such as cloud data storage enable remote information uploads, which are then automatically synchronized through the big data system and provide on-demand access to the latest data and analysis. The result is a comprehensive resource that is refreshed and updated on a regular basis, both manually and automatically. The most common type of big data projects conducted by medical affairs team include post-launch real-world studies around product use and health outcomes. Research shows that 88% of US physicians and 83% of EU physicians consider real-world evidence as the top criteria in prescribing drugs. There is a real opportunity for medical affairs teams to integrate real-world data with phase 4 studies and big data analytics to provide input into new product development and lifecycle management. Our research shows that there are 4 major benefits that data analytics deliver for health economics and outcomes research. The first one is it helps in faster identification of clinical trial sites. Second one is big data analytics can aggregate real-world data with clinical trial data to support evidence package for reimbursement. They help in mining past results. With big data approach, past results from clinical trials and other evidence can be easily integrated into already established models in order to refine current insights. Fourth one is predictive modeling. The next big step for data analytics is to develop models that can predict health outcomes. In summary, experts see a huge potential for big data and analytics in medical affairs to improve scientific understanding, such as increasing the knowledge in disease area and to better understand genomics to develop better medicine. In addition, leveraging the right data toolset also enables medical affairs team to measure the impact of their strategies and prove their worth to commercial departments. Now looking at mapping patient journey. Leveraging big data and analytics can empower companies to map and influence patient journey. Although pharma companies are in the early stages, using big data and analytics can improve disease diagnosis, treatment, adherence, outcomes, and patient education. Mapping patient journey helps in aligning brand strategy with unmet needs in the market and also improve health outcomes. There are 5 key data elements that need to be integrated in order to paint a full picture of the patient journey. That's data on people, disease, clinical trials, medicine, and treatment. From all these sources, there emerge a more complex and complete picture of the patient journey. For example, claims data can provide geographic coverage and breadth of information about what's happening in the market. Combining that with electronic medical record data provides a clinical depth that is required to understand each of the nuances in the patient journey. Having both the depth and breadth in data ensures that the insights delivered are clinically accurate and applicable to the wide geographical area. Most of the experts we interviewed again identified cloud computing as a strong asset in accommodating big data and mapping the patient journey. Novartis and Roche, for instance, have partnered with Qualcomm, and Novo Nordisk have partnered with IBM on cloud-linked device projects. Experts suggest that the future of patient engagement lies more with connected devices and real-time analysis. Big data and mapping patient journey is all about getting the right medicine to the right patient at the right time to improve patient experience and health outcomes. Now let's look at the key challenges companies are facing using big data and analytics. One of the main challenges pharma companies face in the digital space are regulatory and privacy issues. The EU and the FDA have regulations in governing digital health. As one of our experts notes, the privacy and regulatory issues can be addressed if they are thought about in advance and appropriate processes are in place. Experts also suggested that outsourcing the data to third-party vendors can reduce privacy concerns because the onus is then firmly with the data vendor. In terms of compliance issues, especially with medical teams, experts suggest that pharma companies brief technology and data partners of the internal procedures and install appropriate firewalls to limit access to data. Companies need to build trust among stakeholders so that they are willing to share the data and also believe in the data provided by pharma companies. Another challenge faced is fragmented and unstructured data. Experts suggest that companies need to harness data from various sources separately and complement them with each other to align with the goals of the company's data strategy. To harness data from multiple sources, two things need to happen. First, the individual strength and weakness of each data source must be understood, and second, different data sources must be complemented by each other. The next main challenge is that internal silos in the organization can reduce the accessibility and visibility of data. Our experts highlight that pharma companies are struggling to integrate data effectively, and there should be some process in place to share data and insights throughout the organization. For instance, having a central repository can solve this problem of not knowing where the data are. Competitive advantage can only be attained by selecting the right data and right analytical tool and incorporating human intelligence to it. To drive digital transformation, some pharma companies have created the position of Chief Digital Officer. For example, GSK and Novartis have just hired executives from the world of retail to be their Chief Digital Officer. Training is also key. However, companies realize that it is not easy to train internal pharma staff. Hence, partnering with data analytics companies is crucial until pharma becomes self-sufficient. The final main challenge is measuring return on investment. When investing in data analytics, companies lack clear sight of return on investment. Companies need to define what their end goal is before investing in any initiative. Pharma companies need to balance strategic opportunities with financial ROI. I would now like to conclude by outlining a few factors that will help companies successfully implement a sustainable big data and analytics strategy. First and foremost, companies must link analytics to business outcome, and they need to prepare flexible analytical infrastructure and have goal-oriented data strategy. They should harmonize data from multiple sources, and the program should be driven with the full sponsorship of senior management. Companies need to perform thorough analysis of big data and analytical capabilities to identify internal gaps. They should establish KPIs and continually validate and enhance the data and analytical strategies. This brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening. Now I'll hand over to Paul Stockdale.
Thank you very much, Purnima. I'd now like to introduce you to Lance Scott, President and CEO of Zephyr Health. Lance has over 25 years of experience in the life sciences industry. In his presentation, he will focus on how big data and analytics can deliver competitive advantage. So over to you, Lance.
All right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. And as Paul mentioned, while I currently lead Zephyr Health, Insights as a service solution provider for life science companies, obviously has spent a number of years tackling some of the challenges that Purnima was outlining that pharmaceutical and med device companies face in trying to better leverage or optimally leverage data, analytics, and the resulting insights to guide and instrument the business. So a pleasure to be with everyone today. Next slide. So in building on some of the themes that Purnima discussed, clearly, she did an excellent job of indicating and reviewing how big data can work across functions within life science companies, the therapeutic life cycle. What I'm going to do is focus a little more on the application of data, analytics, and insights to optimize go-to-market activities for pharmaceutical companies. And two themes certainly I want to build on that you heard in Purnima's presentation. One is this idea of speed, which I think is absolutely essential in today's market. The second, with this mention of physicians have less time, so this idea of how do we personalize engagement to provide maximum value via that engagement. And there's some technology as well as other opportunities to leverage to do so. So if we look at some of the opportunities within the area of commercial effectiveness, some themes we certainly are addressing with our clients. One is more and more data is becoming available, which is a benefit as we try to better understand our clients and better customize the engagement we want to execute. So we have more diverse data sets, more data sources in which we can tap into. The challenge, of course, is how do we integrate those in a way that we make those actionable and so they can offer richer insights. Beyond that, because once again of the complexity of more data upon which we want to capitalize, especially as we think about customer-facing teams, it's this whole idea of how do we programmatically provide those insights so that those teams can capitalize on those at a point in time when they're planning their engagement or about to execute engagement with, be it a provider, group practice, hospital system, those respective entities with which they have responsibility. Despite the fact that almost every pharmaceutical company has dedicated functions, capabilities in the area of market access, there's still an opportunity we see to further refine the working relationship between the market access and commercial teams, and we think technology and insights is a way to facilitate that coordination. And then finally, a lot of interest in this whole idea of using data to better understand customer relationships and those networks, because those can be very key to the decision-making approaches that providers or healthcare organizations apply when thinking about therapeutic or diagnostic solutions for the patients to which they're charged in their care. Next slide. So as we think about the data that we want to integrate to offer the richest view of our customers' customers or within the healthcare ecosystem, we think about three categories of data that provide value. Obviously, each of our clients and pharmaceutical companies generate a tremendous amount of internal data through all the activities that are generated to not only provide a valuable understanding of the therapeutic solution that they're providing, but also ongoing engagement they're having with various members of the healthcare ecosystem. And sometimes just bringing together that data so a client can get a comprehensive view of the engagement activities they're executing against a common, say, physician or group practice or institution can be very, very valuable. And so a technology platform with the right degree of insight generation can really assist in that area. But we also like to bring in data that is provided by a number of third-party data providers. So here you would think examples of data providers could include Quintiles IMS or Symphony or Decision Resource Group. So data that generally is being purchased by the clients, so they have a better understanding of what's happening, in the marketplace in terms of the relative performance of their particular product or therapeutic solution. And then the third category of data, which tends to be the most challenging data set to work with, is actually data from the public domain, because this data doesn't really carry with it any common key to ensure that we're affiliating the right data with the right entity, once again, be that a physician or institution. But there we can apply machine learning, proprietary know-how in a way that we can link that data effectively, reliably, and predictably with those entities as well. And the result of that then is that we get the most comprehensive possible view of entities of interest for our pharmaceutical clients. In this case, you could see a visual example of a physician profile, where we can serve up information in an easy-to-consume fashion with very easy insights, things like scores, as well as visualization of the data across categories that are traditional, like treatment, but also some categories that historically have been more difficult to leverage, things like the influence of a particular provider in their given therapeutic area or marketplace, with things like leadership positions on key societies or key health networks, their productivity from a speaking perspective or influence there, as well as things even like Sunshine Act data, so we can leverage information about perhaps the historical financial relationship between a provider and other companies. So all those can offer valuable insights as we consider how we want to optimally engage with a given provider. Next slide. What I think is a very positive trend is the advances we're seeing in our consumer life in terms of technology, and how technology we use each and every day is providing insights to us, is really creating a standard against which we need to start to measure the way we offer insights in a business setting or in a work setting for pharmaceutical companies. So all of us, have probably become more reliant on our smartphones than we would care to mention, but things from simple alerts that remind us that something is coming up in terms of an event, or if there's some warning about weather or what have you, to something around information that's served up because we've customized our interface and there's certain information we want served up to us each morning or each evening, or we get into our car, the car Bluetooth connects to our mobile phone. The phone then correlates where we are, looks at our calendar in terms of next appointment, plots a path in terms of the best route for us to minimize time based on traffic patterns. So, we're in this mode now of getting insights, valuable insights served up to us at a point in time when we can act on those. And that really starts, I think, to set a standard for how we need to think about offering and serving up insights for stakeholders within pharmaceutical companies to make their jobs easier so that valuable insights are served up at a point in time when they can consider acting on those and then incorporating those in their activities. In this case, we'll show you some examples of insights that might be very valuable in a go-to-market consideration. So next slide. So what we can do now is take a number of data sets that traditionally don't coexist in a given technology, solution, or platform, and we can leverage those in a way to serve up a recommended next step or a recommended activity to a stakeholder within the life science company by bringing a number of disparate data sets together. So a couple examples you see here, something like a physician perhaps has had a low degree of historical interactions, let's say by a field-based team, but we can link that to information and insights about that physician's response to, say, direct mail or non-personal digital promotion, so that now all of a sudden someone who's going to interact with this particular provider understands that this physician or his or her staff maybe expressed interest in a given patient program that upon which they got the information digitally. So now this creates an opportunity or a topic of engagement that's relevant and of interest to that particular provider that we can act on. Likewise, example of the, say, market access situation where there's a change in formulary status. So not only can we link data relative to what's been the change in that formulary status for a given product, we can also provide information relative to what portion of the practice does this influence in terms of the pharmacy benefit. We can also serve information about the relative utilization of, say, a sponsor's product versus competitive products in the market basket. So all this information can be integrated and served up in an easy to consume and a much more easy to action insight, and once again served up at a time when it's relevant for that particular stakeholder. Next slide. We recently conducted some research with a number of executives across a range of pharmaceutical companies, and as I was mentioning earlier, despite the focus on market access, we did see a consistent pattern that, in terms of responses, that there's still an opportunity to further refine that working relationship between the market access and commercial teams. And so 62% of the respondents indicated that they're looking at technology as one solution to help close that gap between brand teams and market access teams. And when they characterize what barriers are, in effect, interfering with their ability to optimize that working relationship, we saw responses such as, data is not effectively shared between the teams. Perhaps there are different strategic goals across those two organizations, or perhaps the organizations are using two different sets of tools. So this idea of looking at a common data set or communicating around that and those resulting insights to then have consistent action that can be executed to connect the work that the market access team has done to perhaps create a favorable position for a given therapeutic, and then pull that through, if you will, via the commercial team through the raising awareness and educating the appropriate providers and health systems relative to that change in status is not an easy lift. And so we see that companies are looking for tools and mechanisms to help improve the efficiency of that type of activity. And we are certainly strong believers that with the right technology platform and the right data-driven insights, we can make that a much more streamlined process and a much more efficient process for our clients. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we can serve that up both programmatically, so we can create a notification when there's been a change in formulary status so that it's very clear to members of the client organization as to which providers should be most significantly impacted by a change in formulary status for a given product, or we can even, there might be interest in understanding a change in formulary status for a competitive product, so all those can be served up, but we can also visualize that status in a fashion that makes it very easy and intuitive for the user to quickly understand the relative position of, say, our product versus a competitive product in a given practice or in a given institution based on the leading payers for that particular product, once again, whether that's a part of a pharmacy benefit or medical benefit. Next slide. We're seeing right now is trying to further leverage and understand relationships between providers and health systems, health system to health system. And once again, in the same survey I was mentioning earlier, we saw that 70% of believe that this relationship is heavily influential in terms of the behavior adoption, if you will, of given therapeutic solutions across healthcare providers as well as healthcare organizations. However, only about 50% of the responders were on a consistent basis analyzing customer relationships and networks to use that as they refine their go-to-market strategy or their brand plan. So clearly there's an opportunity. It's important. Everyone, I think, recognizes that. The question now is how do we better operationalize that or better integrate that as part of the brand planning and go-to-market process. Next slide. And similar to what we've done in leveraging disparate data across a number of different data sources and data sets, the same approach can be applied here as we think about provider networks and relationships so that we can then better understand those relationships and leverage that in terms of how that fits in supporting a particular therapeutic brand plan. So whether that's being leveraged to identify new customer segments, whether we're using that to think about expanding the traditional targeting approach because now we understand the relative value of not just physicians who might make the therapeutic choice to provide a given product to a given patient that's eligible, but maybe even educate physicians who have the opportunity to refer patients to a specialist who might make that ultimate therapeutic decision. We now have the insights to be able to target in a very precise way those physicians or practices that in effect are part of the patient's care, managing patients, perhaps pre-treatment with the given therapeutic, and raise awareness on their part so they're more apt to refer patients to a point of care where that therapeutic decision can be made. And that can carry a lot of value for, especially for companies that have recently launched or will be launching more specialized therapeutic solutions. And that allows the companies then to reach high volume providers, whether they're actually high volume from a prescribing perspective or high volume in terms of the patient population they're managing. Both can have tremendous value. And so data analytics and insights can allow us to help companies better think about that as a broader approach to their go-to-market strategy and supporting the brand. It also, these insights in terms of relationships and understanding the networks can really help companies further tailor their non-personal promotion. So whether it's insights that can be leveraged by the customer-facing field team or can be leveraged by the brand teams that are managing the non-personal promotion, that's a significant value proposition of this type of insight as well. Next slide. So those were some of the prepared thoughts around data, analytics, and insights that can be leveraged, specifically now thinking about go-to-market support for therapeutics and therapeutic solutions from pharma companies. And at this point, Paul, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Lance. We're quite short on time, really, running over a little bit, but we'll spend a couple of minutes answering one or two questions. So Lance, here's one about data sources. You mentioned the diversity of data sources, but what can or should a company do to assess the reliability of third-party data sources?
Yeah, so that's a pretty broad question, but I think in working with the right partner, you can work with a solution provider that has experience with a wide range of data sources. And so obviously in the position we're in, we want our client solutions to integrate the most reliable data possible. We have the benefit of experience working with a wide range of customers, and therefore, have that experience in assessing the value proposition of different data sources. So we certainly come to each engagement with a pretty strong perspective on the data sources that are reliable and would then provide valuable insights. Obviously, the insights we're generating are only going to be as valuable as the quality of the data that goes into generating those. So that is a key criteria as we think about the data sources that should be included. So I think this is one of those situations where often our clients have very good ideas about data sources, and occasionally they'll be aware of a data source that's particular to their therapeutic area that we may not have worked in historically. But generally, I would say this is a case where working with a partner that has a lot of experience with a wide range of data sources can be very valuable because you get the benefit of their experience assessing those data sources, quality thereof, and the reliability thereof for the work they've done with a lot of other clients.
Okay, thank you. And one on regulation. How much of a drag are regulations or regulatory bodies placing on big data initiatives in pharma, in your experience? I guess what we want to know is whether regulations and regulators can keep pace with the advances in big data.
No, it's a great question. I think Purnima touched on this in her comments, especially I'd say there's a real geographic difference we see right now in terms of attitudes towards data. So clearly working in a European environment, there are a lot more guidelines and regulations about the specificity of how you work with different data sets. And we're able to navigate that, though, and I think add a lot of value for clients in European engagements. I would say in the U.S., there are fewer of those restrictions or regulations. And so to date, we really haven't encountered a situation where we weren't able to provide the degree of insights that a client was looking for because of a restriction on the data front. Now, all this, of course, there's a lot of discussion around data and data privacy, globally. So, I think this will be an evolving landscape, but I would say to date, we're able to tackle most of the client use cases and do that in consideration of appropriate compliance with existing guidelines around data.
Okay, thank you. And Purnima touched on this actually, but I'd like to get your take on it with the commercial pharma team perspective. Are you seeing much in the way of artificial intelligence, machine learning, behavioral analytics for delivering insights to commercial teams?
We're seeing a lot of interest in that area. I think the other comment that Purnima made that resonated with me, because I think it reflects the work we're doing with a lot of clients, is I think there's an ambition on the part of clients to leverage state-of-the-art capabilities such as machine learning and some degrees of artificial intelligence to start to offer insights, especially across very complex data sets. That said, what we tend to see with most of our clients is this idea of a human engagement, so maybe we call supervised machine learning is the terminology we would use, probably is the current state of the art, because I think our clients want to be, in going through that transition, that evolution, I think they want to be very comfortable that the insights that are being generated are trustworthy from the perspective of understanding how those are being generated, and also I think from a change management perspective, how those programmatic insights will be ultimately delivered in the organization. They're only valuable if then they are executed, right? So a lot of the change management considerations, I think, are guiding our clients to kind of walk before they run in terms of leveraging machine learning, artificial intelligence. But I think we'll continue to move down that path, and I think our clients will continue to be more comfortable relying more exclusively on machine-guided insights. So I think that's the trend we'll see unfold.
Okay, that's great. Right, we're running over quite a bit, so I think we'll probably ought to close now. Thank you very much, Lance. Thank you, Purnima, as well. Thank you to those of you who submitted questions, and to everyone for attending this First Word webinar brought to you by Zephyr Health. Just to remind you, the webinar has been recorded. You'll be sent a link to download the recording shortly. Also, that the next series of slides you will see provide details of the sources used for the First Word presentation. These slides will be included in the recording. So that brings this event to a close. Again, thank you for your time today, and goodbye.